Today we are going to create some Christmas candle artwork, and this is episode number 2. We already started this project last episode. Last time we were discussing how at Christmas time we often use candles to decorate, and how this is because Jesus is the light of the world, and we want to represent that in our decorations at Christmas time because it is the time that the light of the world is arriving. And we also discussed how sometimes candles are used in a different way, like the mouse does in this story. The last time that we were together, we started reading Mouse's Christmas Gift by Mindy Baker. In this story, we learned that there was a small church mouse that saw that it was December 23rd, and the parson was nowhere to be seen. The parson is what the mouse is calling the pastor of this church. Anyways, Mouse goes about decorating for Christmas, and then he discovers that parson is ill, and that he does not feel like he can do the Christmas Eve service. Well, this really worries this little mouse because the mouse has never seen Parson not do the Christmas Eve service. So Mouse sits that evening and is thinking about what he could do for the church. And as he's thinking, he lights a candle in the window. Well, across town, there's a little boy named Alexander, and Alexander sees this candle in the window, and he starts thinking, well, what could I do to help? So let's finish our story today, and then we'll finish our Christmas candle artwork. While his parents slept, Alexander stepped softly out into the crisp air and gathered pine branches and holly, forming a circle. He ran to the church door and hung his meager wreath in place. "Joy to the world," Alexander whispered to himself as he headed back home. The next day, Lizzie Jenkins noticed Alexander's wreath on the door of the church. She pointed and said to her sister, "That pine tree looks bare standing next to the wreath. Let's tie our hair ribbons on its branches to decorate for Christmas." From his forge, the blacksmith watched hair ribbons, quilting squares, and scraps of fabric appear on the tree as many passerbyers stopped to add a decoration. He began to heat and shape a piece of scrap metal into a shining star. When the blacksmith thought no one was looking, he carried a ladder over and set the star in its place. Out her window, Willow Bartholomew's eyes studied the blacksmith as he placed the star on top of the tree. A smile crept onto her face. She looked in her cupboard and spotted the jar of strawberry jam she had saved for a special occasion. Then she set to baking bread. That night, on Christmas Eve, a small group of villagers gathered in front of the darkened church. Mouse peered out the window, and his heart began to pound. They came! He raced up the door frame and unlocked the latch. The townspeople talked and whispered in front of the church. "It's been a while since I've been to church. Where's Parson and his wife? I think he's been ill." They tried the door and found it unlocked. "I could light a fire in the stove," said the blacksmith. "I've brought my bread and strawberry jam to share," added Willow Bartholomew. The villagers sat in the pews and looked at each other. "What next?" "We have our voices," said Mrs. Stevens. So they began to sing. "O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and his soul felt it's worth a thrill of hope. The weary world rejoices." Parson heard the music from his bed. What was going on? He wrapped himself in his quilt and walked to the door, his wife following behind. As they entered the chapel, someone began reading from the Bible. Luke chapter 2. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. Parson sat down in a pew and stared. Why had the people come? Who set up the nativity? Had he left the church unlocked? He closed his eyes and listened. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and laying in a manger. Parson smiled. Good news of great joy. The baby Jesus is the Savior for all people. He fills our greatest need. Mouse watched from his home in the wall, a smile on his face. He nibbed a bit of bread and strawberry jam. Christmas Eve, all was well. It's now time to start our Christmas candles artwork. For today's project, you will need the papers that we painted in the last episode. So if you have not done that yet, you can click in the upper right hand corner of our screen right now and you can go to that episode and do the background paper and the other papers we need. To get started, you need to cover your desk or have some kind of scrap paper nearby. Go ahead and grab your background paper, your candle paper, your green painted paper, and your yellow flame painted paper, as well as glue stick, scissors, and a pencil. So let's get started. We are first going to slide all of that stuff to the side and we are going to do step 1, making our candle. So take your candle paper, whatever color you chose for your candle paper, mine was blue, flip it over and we're going to draw the shape of your candle on the back. Before you draw anything, you need to decide how many candles you want. Do you want one large pillar type candle or do you want 4? You might choose to do 4 candles because some churches celebrate the season of Advent and they have 4 candles. So whatever the amount of candles you choose, you want to draw that number now. If you wish to draw more of a pillar type of candle, then I would suggest drawing a rectangle on your candle paper that you painted. And after you draw the rectangle, then round the upper 2 corners. Now, if you have trouble rounding the corners, one way that you could do this is grab something like your glue stick and just trace around the edge of it. And so that way it will round the corners of your candle for you. If you want more of the slender tapered type of candles, then you flip over your paper that you painted and you're going to draw more like longer skinny rectangles, but just bring it to a point at the end there and then bring your line back down. Now you can draw one of these or you can do 4 of these if you want. If you want to do more than one, then what I would suggest is go ahead and cut out your first one and then trace that one for the number of candles that you want, because this will allow all of your candles to look the same. That way you don't have one candle of your tapered looking super tiny and one super large, because when you're using tapered candles, they're all going to be the same size. And it's time for step 2, to cut out the candles. So no matter if you did the tapered candles or if you wanted to do the pillar candle, cut nice and slow on your lines that you drew so that you have a nice neat cut. Step 3, making the flame. So last video we painted a piece of paper yellow and then we added a little bit of orange and a little bit of red to it. So you can just freehand cut this, but I would recommend trying to draw a teardrop shape on the other side of your paper, or you can draw it on the front side, but you want to make sure that it is cut off completely and not any pencil lines left if you draw it on the front side of your paper. You will also have to make enough flames for the number of candles that you have. So if you went with more than one candle, then you may have to make more than one flame. And You can do that if you did not paint yourself enough flames. You can also just use a marker at this time to add a little bit of orange and a little bit of yellow or a little bit of orange and a little bit of red to your flame. Okay, step number 4 is glue the candle and the flame to your background paper. So you're going to grab a hold of that background paper and your candle and your flame and glue all of that down. If you went with one candle, then you'll want to just glue that in the center of your paper. Make sure that the bottom of it is touching the brown table at the bottom of your paper. And then glue the front flame a little bit above the candle. Don't glue it right on the candle because you want to draw a small wick. Make sure to really cover the paper that you are gluing with lots of glue because of the paint and the thickness of this paper. It will be hard to get it to stick if you don't put lots of glue on it. You want the candle to end about where the center of that yellow is in the background so that it's like the flame is illuminating that paper. And you want to make sure, again, put lots of glue on this. If you are doing all 4 Advent candles, then I would just suggest to have 2 of them set a little bit higher than the other 2 so that they kind of look like they're in an Advent wreath shape. For our 5th and final step, we are going to tear the green paper into little strips and then glue it. So we are going to use this paper, this green paper, to make it look like a little wreath around the bottom of our candle. So tear it into small strips and then glue it and crisscross it different ways while gluing it so that it looks like a little wreath of greenery at the base of your candle. And if you noticed while I was doing this, I took my pencil and made little wicks for my flame, attaching it kind of to the candle. And after you finish that, you can add any little creative touches that make it uniquely yours if you would like. Like you could add some berries to the greenery, or you could add some words on the candle, or you could draw something on the side of the candle. I've seen all sorts of different things added to this by different students, and it always looks amazing. One time I had somebody draw a little bird and add it into their picture. So you may choose to add or not add anything to make this uniquely yours in the end. Thank you for creating with me, and I hope you enjoyed today's art project. Have a Merry Christmas!